LaxFactor podcast. What is up, college lacrosse fans? You are watching a special live stream here of the LaxFactor podcast. Once again, I'm just trying to practice getting my streaming capabilities set up so I can stream tomorrow's show live. So we're going to try to pull that off here. Today, we are going to watch some Syracuse highlights from last night's game against Manhattan. Did they hit the spread? Was it 12.5 goals that they were favored by or 14.5 goals? I can't remember. And I said in my Thursday show that the problem is I just don't see Syracuse trying to beat Manhattan up. You know, their new defensive coordinators, new team, or old team. I didn't see them going in there and just trying to absolutely thrash and demoralize them, and they did sub early. But between the face-off dot troubles for Manhattan, or you could call it the face-off dot winning for Syracuse, and just Will Mark being an animal in goal still. Syracuse, I believe, covered that spread, but you can chirp me here in the comments. I am streaming this live to both YouTube and to Twitter, so I am not sure how the comments are going to come across. So please, if you're watching on one of these platforms, hit me up here with a comment, question, whatever, so that I can play around with the new system that I'm using and try to see if it all works here. But as we're doing that and we're waiting for people to filter in, I don't expect more than 7 to 15 people at max through this whole stream, because obviously I didn't publicize this. I just popped off. Literally woke up at like 8:30, drank a coffee, took a number 2, and now I am here talking to you. Look at, I'm a poet. I'm like freaking brilliant lyricist poet. But what I wanted to do to start here was we were going to dive in and we'll watch a little bit of Syracuse highlights. I'm going to turn my desktop audio on so you can hear the audio here. And I'm just going to kind of shut up and we're going to watch some highlights straight from Cuse's Twitter. And we'll kind of talk about them as we go here. Cone's dominance at the faceoff dot. It was absolutely crazy. Absolutely incredible. And then we see him score a goal to open the game right off the faceoff. That hasn't happened for Syracuse in what seems like 19 years. That was a sick strike. And whew, making it look easy. Making it look easy. What I've loved about Hiltz is and we're going to see this here, and I'm actually going to stop it once we get to that point where he does it. I love how Hiltz can dodge. He's covered. His defender's playing good position defense, but he still, as he cuts to the middle of the field, finds, like right here is going to be a good example. You know, his defender isn't in terrible position outside of the fact he let him get the high side and he was running without a stick on his hands. You know what I'm saying? But Leo has played well. One thing that's been tough for Syracuse here is it has to be tough for Gate, is to try to figure out how do we get all these guys time. They had a bunch of guys that contributed at the midfield specifically last season, Leo, Roja, Thompson, all these guys. But then you bring in English, you bring in these transfers, and it's like, how do you get all of these guys time to the point where the guys from last year that got you back to the winning side of things, you make sure that you're honoring their commitment and what they did while also bringing in, the three big transfers that are all starting right now. It's like, how do you keep all these guys happy? And so far they've managed to do it. The guys look like they're having fun. Granted, they haven't played a good team yet. Outside of Colgate was pretty solid, but they still handled Colgate. So I cannot wait for the Maryland game that's looming here to see how that all goes down. Some aggressive defense we saw yesterday. Figueroas went out yesterday after, I think, the first quarter. Now we're down 2 defensemen so far. I don't know what the Figueroas injury looks like, but it looked like he did not finish the game and he was banged up. So we'll have to see what happens there. Beautiful shot by Hiltz. I was afraid Hiltz might get lost in the shuffle a little bit with some of the new additions, and it's been the opposite of that. It's almost as if Hiltz is thriving with the talent all over the place. Oh, Twitter, we dropped down to 0 people watching on old Twitter, guys. I have a very small following on Twitter. I got to improve that. Woohoo! These are almost going too fast. I'm going to cut these up for myself in the future. Even some of the young guys getting in on some of the action. And this was where I thought that Manhattan might be able to tighten things back up again. They weren't able to here. Look at Gary. I'm not a big fan of the suit here. I had a joke that was running around in my chats that I was saying to people, and everyone advised me not to say my joke about Gate out loud publicly because I might get canceled. It wasn't mean or anything like that. I thought it was kind of funny, but even my wife, who's the arbiter of all things that I say, said, no, you should probably not say that, out loud publicly, which was what I really, really badly wanted to do. So that's it for the Twitter crap here. So let's dive into some of these games I wanted to talk about today. I talked about these all already. Boston U against Vermont. I think Boston U is going to win this game. I think Boston U has the potential to win this game by quite a few goals because Vermont is not the Vermont that we've gotten used to seeing over the course of the last, say, 4 years or so. No more Burke at the faceoff dot. That helped them greatly because when you're winning possessions at a 55 to 65% clip, depending on the game, that's always going to bode well for you. And they had a lot of offensive firepower. They were good defensively. They've traditionally had a goalkeeper in net that could play pretty solid. Now, granted, their only sample here right now is Syracuse. So Egan and Cage got absolutely shredded. They got absolutely shredded by Syracuse at the face-off dot. As you look at all these stats here, and this is just a product of Syracuse changing their ways at the face-off dot here. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that the game against Syracuse defines Vermont at this point, but what I would say is the game against Syracuse defines where Vermont is compared to some of the better teams compared to where they used to be. And last year, what was it, a 2-goal game in the Dome, 7-5 or some crap like that in the Dome last year, and Vermont didn't dominate the faceoff dot in that game. Cuse actually, I think, hung at like 47% against Burke. Now Burke is running around for Ohio State. Vermont doesn't have that anymore. Defensively, they're not quite as stacked. Offensively, I'm not sure. We'll have to see, against a different D. But BU, they are not the team to try to figure out who you are against. BU, from a scoring perspective here, for anyone who doesn't know and isn't familiar with BU, Louis Perfetto is an absolute dog. Jake Cates came out last year, is really tough. Vince Dalto, another absolute dog. So that attack down there for Boston U is the real deal. And unless Vermont can actually play some defense, which they didn't do too much of against Syracuse, they're going to struggle. And when I say Boston U offensively is good, I'm talking Boston U offensively is probably one of the top teams in the country. If we go into, I don't know if Lacrosse Reference is going to actually have last year's data points so that we can actually kind of dive into, what do we want to dive into? Men's D1 stats here. Yeah, see, they're already going to be on this year. So, like, in terms of cumulative efficiency was what I was going to look at last year. Boston U was right up there with the best of them. And they'll continue to be this year. Their offense, I don't know if their offense is going to be quite as potent as last season, but it's going to be pretty damn potent. If you look at what these guys did last year for Boston U, Dalto, 68 points on the season, Perfetto, 64, Timmy Lay, who's gone, 54, but then you come into, Bork, 25, what was Cates? Cates was only 6-1, so he didn't have a breakout season last year, but hey, he had 5 goals. He actually had more goals, or almost as many goals in their season opener as he had all of last season here. So that's interesting. But my point being, Boston U is the real deal. I feel like they are probably going to beat the ever living crap out of Vermont here today. I think I would I don't know what the betting odds here are. Let's see here, DraftKings. And like I said, again, guys, this is just me shooting from the hip through this whole stream simply because I'm trying to practice. I want to actually go back and review, make sure my audio is synced up and all that crap. I'm going to roll some highlights here and there during the show tomorrow morning when I do it live. But let us hop on to DraftKings here. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like Boston U to cover for this one also here. So, I mean, I would be taking Boston U as the 4.5 goal favorite on this one because I think that Boston U is legitimately that good. And I say that with the caveat that I am an absolute shithead as it pertains to betting on lacrosse. I know the rosters, I know the teams, I know what I at least think should happen. But in terms of like picking spreads, that's where I'm really bad. So typically I'm pretty decent on the money line bets, but when it comes to picking spreads and crap like that, I'm terrible. But in this case here, I do like Boston U as a 4.5 goal favorite. I don't think that that's absolutely terrible for them. Let's move on here. We'll talk about a little bit about Ohio State, Cleveland State, only because Ohio State, They have the rough one, the rough start, I should say, versus Utah here in the game last weekend. 11-8, Utah came out and was leading early. This was actually one of the bets early on that I had in a parlay that I thought was going to lose me the parlay, because at one point, Johns Hopkins and Denver were in the middle of that parlay as well. Hopkins comes out rolling, so it was the Ohio State game that I was like, ah, shit, man, am I going to lose this parlay because Utah is going to upset Ohio State? Didn't happen. It ended up being Denver that beat Hopkins that screwed me. But, they have to come out, play a little bit better here. Like I said, at the faceoff dot, they pick up Tommy Burke. He wins 61%. I think he actually started out a little rough earlier in that game, if I recall correctly, and then cleaned it up. And that probably helped Ohio State quite a bit here. But they got to deal with losing some guys here. They get Thomas Greenblatt from Binghamton, transfer midfielder, who I'm a big fan of. Penn State had the Binghamton transfer last year that tore it up for them. This year it's Ohio State, the Big Ten team, that gets to steal a midfielder from Binghamton. So for guys that are not familiar with Thomas Greenblatt as a lacrosse player, and now as a lacrosse player for Ohio State, get used to the name. I think the kid's going to put up 25, 30 points for Ohio State. I mean, he's capable of putting up that level of points. I'm not saying he's going to, but I think that there is a chance that the kid ends up being one of their top 3-4 scorers or so. So don't front on the kid from BU, the real BU, Binghamton University. I always get confused when people say BU, because that's what we call Binghamton University here is BU, and then you're dealing with the Boston University and all that shit, and then people get mad and they all start yelling at you. Delaware Lafayette. I'm not even going to talk about this one. Delaware's going to roll Lafayette here. They've got scoring for days. Just because J.P. Ward by himself is back, he's going to put up a metric shit ton of points here. Let's go down the roster to just see who's back. That's boring. Mike Robinson's back. He's going to F people up pretty good. So yeah, Delaware is going to roll Lafayette. Who really cares about that one? No comments yet. Come on. I'm wondering, are you commenting and I'm just not seeing it? Is that the problem? Now I'm going to have to dig into YouTube here off screen. This is going to go down absolutely as one of the worst streams that has ever happened in the history of college lacrosse. I'm just going into my studio over here to try to see why I am not seeing comments. Either you guys are just lame and nobody's commenting at all, or you are commenting and I can't see it, but I'm not going to be able to see live. Okay, I am live here. Nope, no comments. All right, so you guys just stink. That's okay. Hopkins, Georgetown, already talked about this one and in Thursday's show. I think that the way this goes down is if Hopkins can show up and play even just 3 quarters between their offense and their defense, and if each crew can go out and play for 3 quarters, they're going to beat Georgetown by 2-3 goals. If they come out and play the way they did against Denver in Towson, I think Georgetown keeps this interesting. The problem is just this is a very different Georgetown team. Yes, Jordan Ray puts up 5 goals. That's awesome and all, but they've got a lot to figure out on the defensive side of the ball is where they're going to struggle here this year. New goalie, new look defense. They lose, the bulk of their talent at all those position groups. They lose their goalkeeper, so they're trying to figure all sorts of shit out. Like Vermont, I just don't think this is going to be the Georgetown team that you're used to seeing competing with Denver. I think that they're going to take a little bit of a step back this year as they try to figure things out. That's not to say that by the end of the season they're not right back at the top of their conference. I'm playing well, but I think at least for this one, after getting trounced by Loyola, which surprised some people, I wasn't surprised by the trouncing, but I was surprised by the margin. I felt like Loyola was probably going to win that game. I forget what I picked. I presume I probably picked Loyola to win that game, or at least to scare Georgetown, but them getting their asses beat the way they did, I think kind of stings. Hopkins, if they play their game and if they play up to their capabilities in terms of offensively and defensively, they can beat the hell out of you. I don't see how Georgetown has a shot. I think if Hopkins can put 4 quarters together, I think you could see Georgetown get beat by 10 goals in this game. Not saying that's going to happen. It's just I think Hopkins is that good, and I think Georgetown has that much, to try to kind of sift through to figure out, all right, who's our dog on offense? We know Haley and Vardaro is supposed to be, and who, what else did we have here? Because what's his nuts didn't even score. How many shots did he take? Where the hell is he? Graham Bundy Jr. didn't. I think he had like 3 shots. Now Graham Bundy Jr. is a volume shooter. That dude will put up 9 shots, 10 shots, and put 2 goals in the net or whatnot. In this game here, he ends up taking 8 shots and doesn't score on any of them. No, 8 shots. I thought their stat sheet said that he only took 3. So he took 8. Vardaro took a bunch. So yeah, they've got to do better at shooting the rock here. But the question just becomes, I didn't really watch the Loyola game and get to dissect what happened in that game to cause those two to play so poorly, because they are supposed to be their leading scorers. You figure between Vardaro, Haley, and Graham Bundy Jr., they should be right at the top, and it ends up being Jordan Ray that goes off for 5, and everybody else was quiet. Haley had a decent game, 1 and 2, 3 shots on cage. So maybe that's who I was mixing up. Maybe I mixed up Graham Bundy Jr. and Haley's stats there a little bit. But for Hopkins, Angelis, as long as he's got the ball in his stick, right now he's shooting the rock at 86% after their first 2 games, which is absolutely bonkers. Degnan, that attack that comes back between Melendez, Degnan, and Angelis are incredible. Defensively, they are deep. They are physical. They've got Chase Erlin now in cage. What's he looking like? 51% after 2 games. Not great. And they haven't played great defensively yet. So we need them to do that. And if they can play a full game, they will whoop Georgetown. If they can't, Georgetown's going to hang. How many times can I say it that way? That's got to annoy the shit out of people too. This, I think, for me is probably, I like that Hopkins Georgetown game, but like I said, I have a feeling that could get out of hand. This game I don't think is going to get out of hand. I think this game should be tight. I said it in Thursday's show. Again, I sound like a guy trying to sell a book over and over again, saying I said it in Thursday's show. For those of you, especially the 2 that are watching on Twitter that may not watch the show every Thursday, I preview every game and talk about almost every game at least a little bit. And in Thursday's show, I talked about how for the first time in a while, I actually like Loyola's attack more than I like the Maryland attack. Now, even in the days of Pat Spencer, you wouldn't have said that about the Loyola attack compared to the Maryland attack, because they had Bernhardt run an attack at that point. I mean, Maryland still had a sick unit there as well. But between James, Minikis, and who's the third one? It's James, Minikis. Is it Poitras? Is he the third attackman there? Either way, between those three attackmen, all of them are filthy. They can all score. Minikis is the young guy, but the dude's a sniper, has a great shot. So I like them. Now, the only kicker being Maryland's defense is absolutely up to the task, especially getting Logan McNaney back in cage again. He was 54% in their opener against Richmond. But Luke Stout's not a chump. So if you kind of went through position by position, I like McNaney a little bit better than Stout, but McNaney's coming back from an injury. I like the Maryland defense much better than I like the Loyola defense, but Loyola as a team traditionally plays pretty solid defense. Where I think Maryland has the biggest advantage here is going to be at the faceoff dot. I said in Thursday's show, Pacheco is not going to be up to the task. Luke Weirman is very good. If Luke Weirman comes out and wins 59 to 60% of his draws in this game, I think that's going to make it tough for Loyola. It might not. Offensively, if Loyola can be efficient and they have a crew that could be efficient enough to, to put goals up on that Maryland defense. But I feel like if both Weirman plays well and the Maryland defense plays okay, it's going to be really tough for Loyola to pull this out. I like Maryland to slow burn to victory to this one. I think that Maryland could win by as many as 5 goals, 6 goals in this one, but I don't think they're going to jump out to a big lead and then go back and forth. I feel like it's going to end up being a pretty tight game early, and then I think they'll kind of slowly separate from Loyola, as I call that the slow burn. Maryland at 3 as a 3-goal favorite. I'm not sure I like that. But this is, once again, one of those cases where I say I am an absolute shithead as it pertains to betting. So I would just about take Maryland at 3 goals, because I think they probably will win this by 4-5 goals by the end of it. But 100%, not 100%, but there is a very good chance that Loyola can hang in this and keep this interesting. I do not see Loyola upsetting them at this point. I don't see that actually happening, but I think that it should be a solid game overall. We get into the game that now has locker room, or like, what do you call it? Locker room material, billboard material, whatever. Michigan, they are not going to win this game. Kevin Conroy came out recently in an Inside Lacrosse interview, and he mentioned something about how the Big Ten is the best conference in college lacrosse. He mentioned something to the effect that it's not the pretty boy conference, insinuating the ACC is the pretty boy conference, and that these guys are ready to punch each other in the mouth every time they play. I thought that was an absolutely moronic thing to say out loud. As a head coach, you're about to go play Virginia at Virginia. This game is huge for your team because you had a huge season last year. You make the tournament, you make noise. Everyone's like, Michigan has finally arrived. All these annoying Michigan fans, and I'm not saying all Michigan fans are annoying, but what I am saying is there's been a lot of people talking about Michigan's back, Michigan's here. It's like, last season they did well. Every season before that, when everyone was calling for Michigan to be, for them to have arrived, it didn't happen. So for Conroy to have one really good season under his belt, to start popping off about how the Big Ten's the best conference when your team has been at the bottom of that conference most of its existence, I don't get it. I do like the swagger. I just feel like as a coach, don't give the other team that added inspiration they need to come out and kick the living shit out of your team, especially considering you lose your second leading scorer from a year ago. He's now playing for Duke and put up 8 points in Duke's first game. You lose some other guys here. You got Bame back. Bame is very good, but this team, and you have a really good face-off unit facing off against Virginia's new look unit. So we don't even know who's taking the draws for Virginia at this point. Is it going to be the kid from Navy that transferred in? Is it going to be Gable Braun, who hasn't had a lot of success backing up P.D. LaSala? He's below 50%. So I think that's Michigan's the one area I think Michigan could really win this game. Not win the game, but win that position group would be at the face-off dot because they have a bunch of killers at the face-off dot. We come in here, we see, they haven't played yet here. What's their nuts? Offhand here, I'm always forgetting people's names when I first get back into the season again. It is making weird noises in your ears. I know you guys love that. They did pick up Christian Ronda, so that's a big pickup. Another Princeton just bled talent here this season, so they pick up both Christian Ronda and the big boy. What's his name? I got to keep scrolling through here. Justin Wheatfeld is the face-off guy that I think is, going to have a pretty big season here. Ryan Cohen's legit too on attack for him. Who was the other freaking transfer they picked up? I always forget the kid's name. Bo Peterson, 89. He looks like he's going to be playing tight end or something like that. He's that big. He could. So Michigan, they have talent, but I still think, losing Zawada's huge. So their only hope of, I think, staying in this game would be to absolutely dominate Virginia at the faceoff dot, which I'm not sure they're going to do, but they could. But even with that, Virginia's defense, I like Virginia's defense much better than Michigan's defense. In Cage, Virginia's got a goalkeeper that's played in the ACC for 2 full seasons now. So I like him a little bit better than what Michigan has in net. Offensively, for damn sure, you're taking Virginia all day over Michigan's depth in terms of scoring. Bame is the real deal for sure. But Ronda can play, and run around in the midfield as well. But yeah, these two teams are not the same. For all these people that think that Michigan's going to hang, I don't know where that's coming from. I believe Virginia was a 4.5 goal favorite in this one. Let's take a look. I cannot see it for some reason. Am I an idiot? Oh, no, duh, I am an idiot. Yeah, 4.5 goal favorite. I'm just about taking Virginia. I believe I did actually take Virginia as the 4.5 goal favorite in this one. Or if I didn't, I took them at money line in like a 9-team parlay or a 9-bet parlay or something like that. So I think that Virginia is probably going to win this game. If Michigan wins 60% of the faceoffs, they might be able to keep it within 4.5 goals, but I think even at that mark, they probably don't. I think Virginia beats Michigan by a margin in this one. And the Michigan fans are really angry at the end of the day. But, that's what you get when you're popping off. You don't pop off the week before you play Virginia and call their conference the Pretty Boy Conference. It's like, what the hell are you thinking? That just doesn't make sense. Once again, especially when your team has been the team at the bottom of that conference more often than not here. So I didn't like that one. Penn State, Villanova. I don't know a lot about Villanova in the sense of what they have coming back yet. After Penn State lost to Colgate, you cannot feel great about them at this point. Despite the fact that on paper they should be really good, it was just they lost to Colgate, and then Cuse turns around and beats the hell out of Colgate. Had Colgate played Cuse to a 2 to 4 goal game, then I'd be like, maybe it was just Penn State played down, but I'm just wondering if maybe we're not seeing the same Penn State team from a year ago. Colgate was able to keep Trainer generally off the board, 9 shots, just 2 goals. TJ Malone was 1-7 on the day, which was huge, but Colgate did enough to shut everyone else the hell up. So this one will be interesting. Penn State's going to have to come out and enrage because Villanova loves to beat teams up early in the year. Villanova's famous for coming out and beating Yale when Yale's a top 5 team and then kind of being a middling team through the rest of the season here. So Penn State does not want to see the Villanova team that loves to come in and play spoiler. And for damn sure, that's what they're going to try to do. So in this one, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I don't care what the spread is on this game here. Penn State, four-goal favorites. I dare say I would take Villanova as a 4-goal underdog here. But, I feel like this line's just not great. If you wanted to win, take a chance on a bet, money line bet here where you could actually get some pretty solid odds, Villanova's not terrible at plus 340, but in the end for this one, I would almost play the spread, and I would say I would take Villanova at plus 4. I could eat shit. Like I said, Penn State could have just had that down game, and they're going to be back, but you lose to Colgate early in the year. Traditionally, that's not going to be a great sign for your team, so we'll see how that plays out for them. What else we got? Stony Brook Rutgers. I think this could end up being a very good game, under the radar game. Stony Brook brings a lot of guys back. They have Dylan Palinetti on attack, who is very good. Nick Dupuis is good. He goes 3-5 last week, which is pretty crazy. Now, granted, Stony Brook, who'd they play? Like Sacred Heart. So, I mean, it's not like they're beating a crazy team in Sacred Heart and they only beat them by 3 goals, whereas Rutgers played Lehigh, traditionally much tougher than Sacred Heart, and they eke out, I believe, a 2-goal win in that game. In this game, you go unit by unit. I like Rutgers' offense better than I like Stony Brook's, but by a very slim margin, because I think Palinetti himself is that good. But Ross Scott, Koulis, Knobloch, I love those 3 guys overall. Midfield-wise, I like the depth of Rutgers midfield a little bit. Defensively, traditionally, you always like Rutgers better than most of these teams. The last 3 seasons, Rutgers has had a killer in Cage. They've been very good and solid across the board on defense. More depth than your average lacrosse team has at the defensive end. And I'm just not sure what they have here. We're dealing with a new goalkeeper that didn't have a great day against Lehigh. We're dealing with a face-off unit that did well against Lehigh's new face-off unit. Sisselberger gone in Lehigh, but if I recall correctly, Lehigh brought in a young killer at the face-off dot. So for Brams and Suter to do well at the dot. And my question, did Cole Brams play for Utah? Where the hell did Cole Brams come from? Who did he play for in these previous seasons? Utah. Okay, I'm not crazy. I thought Cole Brams was the Utah faceoff guy. So that's a big pickup for Rutgers. So I like Rutgers to win this game, but I think this is going to be a low-key, solid game to watch for anyone that tunes in. It is not going, it's going to be on that stupid Flow TV that we all need to boycott. From what I gather from people in other sports, especially wrestling, where Flow TV came in and took over wrestling, what all Flow TV does is they take the shitty broadcasts that the colleges used to all put out for free, and they've just bought these broadcasts up, and they did not improve the production quality at all. So it's kind of like the Big Ten production quality. Big Ten Plus used to be. I used to complain that for $15 a month, the Big Ten Plus, while always worth it to get the games, the production quality for what you paid was absolute shit. It was trash. Flow TV apparently makes the Big Ten Plus look good. Now, Big Ten Plus has gotten better over especially last season. I feel like their broadcasts were actually pretty damn solid across the board. From what I'm hearing, Flow TV's not. But what they did was they took all this content that used to be free, put it under a paywall that's like $30 a month, and it is literally college kids broadcasting these games via the whatever department or division of the school that ends up doing that, depending on what school you're at. So I'm a big boycotter. I'm normally the guy bitching and moaning or chirping all of the people that are bitching and moaning about streaming prices. But when you look at what ESPN Plus gives you, the amount of content you get mixed with a much better production quality, but with the Flow TV, for the price you pay for it, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So I think more people should be boycotting it so that they get out of the game of lacrosse, because all of the sports that they've entered into, like wrestling, I believe there's a couple of women's sports that they've gotten into, the fans absolutely despise the service. They think it's the worst thing that ever happened to their sports, especially when you're going from, you could stream Stony Brook's games traditionally free. They were on Lacrosse TV, I think, for a while when they were part of the America East Conference. So you used to be able to stream these games. Or they might have even been on ESPN Plus at some point, but now you can't. We're all screwed. And boycott the shit out of Flow TV, people. Let's see if they contact me now. So that's it. If I just finish this off here by ripping through the betting odds, I'm not touching this one. Like I said, Boston University, I like them against the spread in this one, but I do believe they're going to win this game almost for sure. Bryant Providence, I think that's a coin flip here. I'm probably not touching this game. I like Bryant, and I would lean their way, but Providence is supposedly going to put a pretty good product on the field this year, so we'll see how that goes. Ohio State against Cleveland State, I'd almost take the spread on this. I feel like after their Utah game, they're going to be hungry, and they're probably going to come up and beat up on Cleveland State, but Cleveland State could be sneaky decent here this year. Delaware Lafayette, not sure about them covering the spread on this one, but Delaware is going to win that game by a margin. Fairfield, Lehigh, I like Fairfield. Once again, I don't know that they'll cover that spread, and I feel like the spreads have been pretty tight so far this season compared to how they started out last year. My problem last year was that I felt I got most of my individual games right, but I kept going into like 7-game parlays where one of those games ended up getting dropped, and I'm just an idiot. So Penn State, Villanova, not touching this one because I like Villanova to cover that spread overall. Villanova could even win that game. So if someone had a gun to my head and said, hey, you need to pick this bet and you got to pick the spread, I'd probably go with Villanova at +4, but I don't feel good about it overall. I have no idea. Queens, VMI, no idea. Hopkins, Georgetown. As I said, I'm taking Hopkins as a 1.5 favorite in this one all day. I feel like this is probably the easiest bet of the day, even if the return on your investment is, what is it, like 86 cents on the dollar or something like that. But I did take Hopkins as the 1.5 goal favorite in that one. Loyola, Maryland. Again, this one, I wouldn't touch the spread here. I would take the pennies and take Maryland money line, but I'm not touching this because I feel like that's literally a coin flip. You're just pissing money to the wind with this one because this could go either way. I think they've absolutely nailed that spread right there. Virginia, Michigan. I'm taking Virginia as a 4.5 goal underdog. I think I actually did take Virginia as a 4.5 goal underdog, albeit I might have taken them money line in a huge parlay that I probably shouldn't have taken. Richmond's going to beat Robert Morris, so they're going to beat Bobby Moe, though, by 5.5 goals. I'm not touching it, but I do like Richmond to win that game. Sacred Heart, Merrimack, no idea. I mean, hell, after Sacred Heart played decent last weekend, maybe 4.5 goals. Taking them as the 4.5 goal underdog isn't a terrible idea. I think this spread's pretty much right on Denver and Air Force. Denver's going to win this game. They're going to win this game by a margin. The question becomes by the game's end, are they 7 goals up or are they only 6 goals up? So I wouldn't touch it. I'd lean a little bit though into Denver at 6.5. High Point Duke. Duke's going to roll them. This once again though, just like the Syracuse Manhattan game, I knew Syracuse was probably 12.5 goals better than Manhattan. The question just becomes, do they beat them that badly? Duke traditionally at times has yanked their starters early. They mix guys off the bench in early when they start getting leads, which ends up making these scores more reasonable than what they should be if Duke just went balls to the wall the whole game. So I'm not touching that, and you'd be a moron to even take this bet as Duke's a 15,000 point favorite here in terms of the money line bet. Carolina and Mercer, same thing. Carolina's going to beat the ever-living shit out of Mercer, but I'm not touching that money line. I'm not touching that spread either because it's early in the season. It's North Carolina's first game. I believe it's Mercer's second game. And then Mount St. Mary's and Towson. I'd take the Mount as a 7-point underdog on this one, a 7-goal underdog. But once again, I don't know enough about these teams to really know overall. All right, so we got through this whole thing. I think right now we got 21 people watching on YouTube. Please, before I shut this down, the 21 people that are now watching on YouTube, can someone post a comment? Just post a comment. It can even be, hey, Ted, eat shit. You suck. You know, your hair is dumb. I'll show you my hair. You can pick on me for balding. Somebody bust me a comment here so that I can actually see what's going on and so I can actually see what's going on and I can see if my comment system here is working. I can't show you that screen because we'll get the perpetual, that Zoom loop all the way down. But the fact that no one has commented yet, as I'm begging you guys to comment just so I can test out my software, I find it kind of humorous here. And honestly, I'm going to be fully honest. I've been talking now for 33 minutes and I have zero idea if anyone has even been able to see this, or maybe I don't have audio. Like, I don't even know what the deal is. Like I said, I'm trying to get used to streaming this. So, hey, in about 8 minutes, we have games popping off here. UMass Lowell is going to host Holy Cross at 11, and then the noon games all kick off, and we're going to have all these games to watch here. I got some friends coming over, hang out with the kids. We're going to watch the Cuse basketball game. I'm going to have my basketball game on the big screen today because I got a basketball guy here, but I'm going to have lacrosse games everywhere else here. I'll have a TV off to the side. So that's how it'll work. So, all right, no one's going to comment. Screw you guys. I'm going home, and I'm going to go upstairs, and I'm going to crack my first beer of the day, I think, at 11 o'clock. My daughter's going to say, Dad, it's not noon yet, and I'm going to tell her It's noon somewhere. The famous line, the famous dad line. It is noon somewhere. So that's it, everybody. I am going to live stream tomorrow's show. I think that as long as I review this and everything looks good, my audio's synced, we're going to live stream tomorrow's show. So be sure to come back tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Tomorrow's show will kick off so long as I live stream it. And if I don't live stream it, the goal will be to just upload it at 10 o'clock. So just hit back at 10 o'clock. I'm not at the Dome today. I'm not going to drink 6 fiddleheads that cost me $90 today. And then a Blue Moon on the way, Blue Moon in the parking lot there. So I ended up being pretty crunk last weekend, hence me missing Saturday's show. If I'm being fully honest, I missed Saturday's show mostly because I was hungover. So that's not going to happen. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. recaps with highlights. It's going to be live streamed. So come back, and I'm going to shut the hell up now. Thank you for suffering through this and letting me do this test. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Hoost is